Tonight, charges are laid after an alleged chemical attack in Milton.
He's been charged with aggravated assault, administer a noxious substance, and robbery.
Police say the victim is suffering from life-altering injuries, and now the community is coming together to help. Plus,
certainly there will be a number of units that have sustained substantial damage, both fire and water damage.
It was a busy morning for Toronto Fire Services after 5 people were rescued from 2 separate fires in the downtown core. And
if you use the men's washroom, some man will complain. So you're always in this catch-22 around bathrooms.
The Minister of Labour is proposing changes that would double the number of toilets required on construction sites and provide separate facilities for women. The community in Milton is coming together to support a young woman who is suffering from life-altering injuries. The victim was out on a walk when she was allegedly splashed in the face with acid. Investigators say the 57-year-old Quebec woman behind bars is a family member. Dale Manektuk has more.
Halton Regional Police say that on March 9th, a woman was attacked here in the area of Parkside Drive and Maxted Crescent. CBC Toronto has confirmed that the victim is 22-year-old Brady McCoy. Police say that McCoy was taking a walk when the suspect approached her on foot. That's when the suspect threw an unknown chemical onto McCoy, causing severe burns to her face and body. The suspect took McCoy's cell phone and fled. McCoy was taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries.
That suspect was identified to be a family member to the victim, and then on today's date, on March 15th, we located and arrested that suspect in Montreal. A 57-year-old from Quebec has been charged with aggravated assault, administer noxious substance, and robbery.
Police say the accused is a woman who is currently in custody pending a bail hearing. McCoy was adopted from Vietnam at 5 months old. She's currently an educational assistant with dreams of being a teacher. She's very involved in the community, which is rallying for her. An online fundraiser has already surpassed $50,000, and on April 14th, Mary Camastra organized an in-person fundraiser that will happen here at the Rad Brothers Sports Bar.
Milton is different. We all help each other out no matter what the situation is. It's not just me, it's a whole community of people that are coming together to make this happen. The funds are for her long-term care. This is life-altering, from what I understand, and it's basically to make sure that she is cared for as long as she needs to be.
In a statement to CBC Toronto, Brady McCoy's father, Dean, says Milton truly is Milton strong, going on to say Brady is still on life support with life-altering injuries. Her recovery will be measured in years and will have lifelong ongoing treatment. On behalf of the family, we're overwhelmed with the support from our friends, family, and community. It truly is above and beyond. Dale Manektuk, CBC News, Milton.
Durham police have issued a Canada-wide warrant for a man wanted in a fatal Oshawa stabbing. Police responded to reports of an armed man at an address on Simcoe Street on Sunday. 2 women were located with stab wounds and were transported to hospital. 1 died from her injuries. 37-year-old Adam Odette is wanted for second-degree murder and attempted murder. This is Durham Region's 6th homicide of the year. Toronto police have made an arrest in a shooting death in Scarborough. 35-year-old Jamal Frederick Dywar is charged with first-degree murder. He allegedly shot 39-year-old Sean Walters earlier this month. Walters was found suffering from gunshot wounds at the Roycroft Motel on Kingston Road. He later died in hospital. Convicted killers Dylan Millard and Mark Smitch made their cases today for retrials in the murder of Tim Bosma. Both men say they were wrongfully convicted, claiming they were unfairly portrayed as villains. Ali Chiasson reports.
Dylan Millard is representing himself and arguing his appeal over Zoom from prison. Quote, "I was mischaracterized as the perfect villain. Wealthy, privileged, seemingly powerful and advantaged, the public attention was a constant threat to the integrity of the trial. I submit that the verdict of first-degree murder was unreasonable." You'll remember, 32-year-old Tim Bosma was selling his truck on Kijiji. Millard and co-convicted Mark Smitch expressed interest and came by for a test drive. While the 3 of them were out, Bosma was shot and killed. Millard points the finger. Quote, "Smitch brought his gun with him on the test drive, and he alone hijacked what was supposed to be a scoping mission." Millard went on to say, if he did it, wouldn't he have turned off his phone to avoid being tracked? Quote, "Why would I be so sloppy and careless?" Mark Smitch's lawyer points the finger right back. Millard killed Bosma. His client helped dispose of the body in the incinerator, arguing the murder conviction should be overturned because he was solely an accessory after the fact. In 2016, they were both found guilty of killing Bosma and each sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for 25 years. On top of killing Laura Babcock too, Smitch and Millard caught another life sentence. Millard was convicted of killing his father as well for his third life sentence. This means Smitch would only be eligible for parole after 50 years, Millard after 75. But as criminal lawyer Daniel Brown points out, that's about to change.
The idea that somebody would serve the rest of their life in prison without even the chance of applying for parole has been ruled to be cruel and unusual punishment, a violation of Canada's Constitution, and therefore that law that required that type of sentence to be imposed has been struck down as unconstitutional.
So both men could be eligible for parole after just 25 years, but Brown says it would be unlikely given their rap sheet and conduct in jail.
We know, for example, that Dylan Millard was found guilty of a jailhouse assault fairly recently, and that's the type of thing that's going to count against him in the future.
But for the present and through the rest of the week, the convicted killers are at appellate court asking for retrials.
Dylan Millard, who's representing himself, spent most of the day taking issue with how he was portrayed in previous trials. He spent hours reading through court transcripts and counted each time he was labeled a villain or a psychopath, saying his trials were doomed from the start. The Crown responds tomorrow. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
It was a busy morning for Toronto Fire Services. A total of 5 people had to be rescued from 2 separate fires in the downtown core. Greg Ross reports.
Fire crews were called to this 3-story building on Queen Street West near Bathurst early this morning. A number of commercial and residential units were engulfed in flames. Some of the residents of the upper units had evacuated to the roof of the building.
Our crews removed 3 persons from the roof upon arrival. They were not transported to the hospital.
While nobody was hurt in this fire, several people were evacuated and the building itself suffered severe damage.
But certainly there will be a number of units that have sustained substantial damage, both fire and water damage. This fire quickly escalated to a 3rd alarm, especially given the construction of these older buildings on Queen Street with the lack of fire stops.
This man says the fire started in the basement of his nail salon and his business suffered the brunt of the damage.
The wood in the wall is all burned, so I mean, it's not really safe for the whole building.
While the cause of the fire is still unknown, he says electrical wiring was old and outdated.
The thing is, the whole building's electric box is in our basement. So I just guess maybe because of the electric box.
Some of the neighboring businesses were spared from fire damage. This woman, who owns a vintage clothing store next door, says there's still a big mess to clean up.
Apparently there's smoke damage and a lot of water damage in the basement.
This is not the only fire that crews faced in the downtown core this morning. 2 other people were rescued from a high-rise building on Jarvis Street.
And they were transported with smoke inhalation to hospital. Their status has been reported to me as non-life-threatening.
Fire crews were able to contain the fire here to just 1 unit. Inspectors remain on scene at both locations, still trying to determine the cause of these fires. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
A notorious Toronto street for speeding is once again at the top of the list for having the most speeding tickets. The latest results from Toronto's automated speed enforcement cameras show Parkside Drive is the city's highest ticketed street. This is the 8th time it's received the dubious distinction. According to the group Safe Parkside, the street has now surpassed 20,000 tickets issued, generating more than $2 million in revenue for the city. But the group says the numbers also prove the speed cameras alone are not doing enough to slow drivers down. CBC weather reporter Fiona Odlum joins us now for a first look at the forecast. And Fiona, looks like there's some wet weather coming our way.
Talia, we have a lot of weather disruptors on the way in the next 36 hours. Expect for St. Patrick's Day to be a soggy one and most likely indoors. But right now, what we're dealing with is the first of two storms, and that is bringing us this yellow area with the winter storm warning from Environment and Climate Change Canada, and then also the special weather statement in blue, where we're looking for heavy snow on the northern portion of the lakes. And then as we're just a little bit west of Ottawa, that's where we're going to see a little bit of a snow rain mix. This is going to be an issue for folks on the highway, especially if you had plans during spring break. Check your highway conditions. So this first storm, you can see it skimming along here just under the banner. This is rolling in from the prairies, and this is what's bringing us this snow event. And so really areas like Sudbury, we're looking for 5 to 10 centimeters tomorrow, and then another 25 possible centimeters on Friday. But let's talk about Toronto, where we're going to be watching this storm here coming through here on the corner of your screen. This is moving in from Colorado. It's going to bring widespread rain. You can see these yellow patches. That's where we're going to see very heavy, intense rain. So we're going to be watching for this rain to bring anywhere between 20 to 30 millimeters of rain. This is the type of system that could break some weather records that we haven't seen broken in almost 30 years. This is the timeline of the storm starting tomorrow morning. We're going to be watching that rain, and it'll continue all the way through till Friday with a possible bit of snow Saturday morning. I'll have more on this storm coming up a little later.
Thanks, Fiona. The Canadian real estate market is continuing its unstable slide, but new numbers show positive signs in Toronto. Nationwide, home sales plummeted 40% in February compared to the same time last year. But in Toronto, the Canadian Real Estate Association says home sales were up from this past January to February. Market watchers suggest the real estate market is ready for a spring rebound. The association says prices began to stabilize last fall in the Maritimes, and some markets in Ontario seem to be doing the same. The Minister of Labour is trying to clean up a messy problem on construction sites. He's proposing changes that would double the number of toilets required on most job sites and also providing some for women only. Lorenzo Redekop has more.
Construction workers can tell you just how bad it can be when nature calls during their workday.
I mean, I have so many horror stories.
Megan Kinch worked for years in construction as an electrician and says one nasty story is way too common.
You go to the bathroom and it's a porta potty, and there is what I call poop mountain, you know, over top of the seat. Like this happens, and you always wonder who's the last guy to sit on there.
But she says it's especially bad for women. Some sites have men's facilities, but none for women.
And then if you complain, somebody will be like, oh, you should use the men's washroom. But then if you use the men's washroom, some man will complain. So you're always in this catch-22 around bathrooms.
Or she's worked at sites that do have a women's bathroom, but it's kept locked with no key for female workers.
Everyone deserves safe, clean, and private washrooms.
Today, the Minister of Labour says an inspection blitz last month of close to 2,000 job sites found almost 250 violations. Bathrooms without doors or places for people to wash their hands, or no bathrooms at all.
I've been clear that these are men and women. They're heroes in Ontario. They're not livestock. We want to ensure that we're going to have the toughest standards in all of North America.
Planned changes include increasing the number of toilets, mandating they be private, adequately lit, and have hand sanitizer if there's no running water. Plus, large sites would have to have a bathroom for women. The minister says he frequently hears complaints from women in the trades. One union says they need to make them feel more welcome.
In light of the current labor shortage, it is imperative that we do not lose valuable workers simply due to inadequate facilities that make workers feel uncomfortable or unsafe.
Megan Kinch says this is just one issue in the industry.
We do need to be seeing more inspections, not just about washrooms. Like, washrooms are like this low-hanging fruit, because if there's a site that has horrible washroom issues, they probably have horrible safety issues.
The new rules would take effect July 1st if approved by the provincial government. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. OPP are warning about a rising problem known as the grandparent scam. Police say the fraud has grown exponentially in recent months. And tonight, officers and seniors organizations are racing to get ahead of it. Kirthana Sasitharan has the story.
The OPP would like residents to be aware of a scam that is targeting senior citizens and grandparents.
That's a video created by the OPP to bring more awareness to a type of emergency scam often known as the grandparent scam.
In 2022, over 1,100 emergency scams were reported across Ontario to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, reportedly resulting in $5.4 million lost. Now, that's over a 300% increase from the year before. And many of those victims, seniors above the age of 60.
Diane Lindsay got one of those calls a few weeks ago claiming their grandson got into a car accident, was in jail and needed help. She even spoke to her supposed grandson.
I'm very trusting, I guess, yeah. I said I'd have to wait and get my husband, but then I was really stressed.
But for her husband, Ron, more questions came up.
And I said, well, now, they've told you they want money, and supposedly there was a gag order by the court, so she wasn't to tell anybody. And I said to her, this sounds like a scam.
The population they're targeting have a landline still.
Armit says the multiple people involved in grandparent scams leads OPP to believe this might be organized crime.
We also know that once you've been victimized once, there's a higher chance of being victimized a second time.
That's why the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, the OPP, and other organizations in Ontario are hoping to get ahead of the problem by offering advice and education to seniors.
We work with various different senior groups across Canada, so we can produce content and provide it to them and provide these training seminars. We've created a great handout with fraud prevention information for any seniors or any organizations that really want that. We've worked with the Canadian Bank Association, and they're going to be issuing these handouts in their branches with their association members.
The Canadian Bankers Association's Your Money Seniors program provides financial education to seniors and their most requested fraud prevention workshops, in person and online.
It's both currently employed but also recently retired bankers who provide their expertise and insight in their community. I hope the impact would be that they stop and think twice if they're in a situation where they're either under duress or being forced to do something.
The most prevalent feeling that I hear from seniors calling our line is the shame.
Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario also offers education workshops and fact sheets and encourages those who don't report to do so.
Many of the times we don't even hear about the amount of frauds that are going on because only 5% are actually reported.
Proctor says many fraudsters claim to be police or court officials, and many seniors follow through because of it. She says it's important to ask more questions and be skeptical of who claims they need your money. Kirtan Asasi there in CBC News, Toronto.
And there's a live look at the city skyline tonight. Clear skies after a sunny day, currently sitting at around 1 degree. And Fiona's back now with our extended forecast. Fiona, I guess we shouldn't get too used to the sun and warmer weather we had today.
Talia, we had a great day today. That's going to change as we look towards tomorrow. But tonight, we're going to look for temperatures around -2 overnight, a really light wind. Wind chill factor, not really a big deal. Tomorrow, we're looking for actually a nice day-ish, 5 degrees. That's really nice and warm. Then things will start to change. We're going to be looking for this system that's going to be moving through, bringing significant snowfall into this northern region, not coming towards Toronto. This is not going to be our biggest issue in the Toronto area. We could see some light flurry activity tomorrow morning, but it will be minimal at best. It really doesn't register. The system that is going to be the biggest problem for us arrives to us on Thursday afternoon. So this will be moving in. As you can see here, it'll start coming through, and it starts to really take over the Toronto and Southern Ontario region starting Thursday night. So this is going to be a factor, and you can see even little moments here where we have some freezing rain in there. Those are words you don't want to hear, especially if you're going to be commuting anywhere. So this rain is widespread, and it lasts all of Friday, Saturday is when we start seeing things tapering off. And here are some of the numbers that we're looking at. You can see that the snow does drift across but doesn't register in towards the GTA, so that's not going to be a huge problem, but the rain definitely will be an issue. You can see here Thursday into Friday into Saturday, we're looking for 12 millimeters in towards Toronto. We're looking even for possibly 23 millimeters in the London region. So what we're going to be looking for in terms of the wind, that will also be a factor for us. So we're going to watch for a little bit of snow, a lot of rain, and a very strong wind. This is just the recipe for some really hazardous driving conditions. So if you can alter your plans to stay home, that is my best advice for you. Tonight, we're looking for -5 overnight in the Toronto area, -5 in Oshawa, -4 in Barrie, and 0 degrees in Sarnia, which will be a really pleasant evening, but be prepared for things to change as we look into our long-range forecast. So tomorrow, 2 to 4 millimeters of rain. We're going to start our day with a mix of sun and cloud. 6 degrees is our daytime high. As we look to Friday, that's the day that we do start seeing the significant rainfall. But once we get past there, we do see pretty great rest of the weekend.
Thanks, Fiona. Spring weather is around the corner, and if you've enjoyed skating at the city's public outdoor rinks, Sunday is the last day to do it. The City of Toronto is closing more than 50 different ice rinks for the season to prep the space for summer sports like skateboarding, pickleball, and tennis. The city says outdoor rinks saw more than 500,000 visits this season. Finally tonight, NASA has unveiled the spacesuit it plans to use for its next mission to the moon. The gear would be worn by astronauts during walks on the lunar surface.
And this is going to be a huge improvement over the Apollo suits. The Apollo suits didn't have many of these types of joints that we've put in this suit, so the astronauts will be more comfortable, have an easier time walking, performing tasks, getting down to pick up a rock or something like that, or use a geology tool.
The suits will be sleeker, designed for greater mobility, and the new helmet improves visibility. It'll provide more protection from the moon's harsh environments and extreme temperatures, designed to reflect heat and keep future moonwalkers cool. The final version will be white and made of mylar and Kevlar. NASA says it's aiming to land 2 astronauts on the moon's south pole in late 2025. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Chris Glover will have your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Good night.